Hear soft, eerie whispers crawling through the wall as you lay in bed. Shadows flicker. You grab your phone and press record, heart thumping, hoping it's just your imagination. But those voices keep repeating. They're not stopping. Who or what is sending these messages from the darkness next door? Could you be in danger, or is there a story you're missing completely? Ask yourself, have you ever faced something so strange you couldn't explain it? The truth might be closer than you think. So, you step out of your car, close the door a little softer than usual, and just listen. There's a thick fog rolling over the street, so you can barely see more than a few yards in either direction. The streetlights are spaced far apart, so every patch of sidewalk between them feels hidden, almost lost in the mist. The only other sound is the faint crunch of wet leaves under your shoes as you pull your suitcase toward this little apartment building that's supposed to be your new home. It should feel like the beginning of something new, maybe even hopeful. But it doesn't. It really doesn't. The building sits at the very end of a quiet, tree-lined street, almost as if it's trying to hide. There's a row of twisted, bare trees right outside the entrance, and their branches scrape the old bricks every time there's a breeze. It's a rough, low sound. Not really loud, but steady, a kind of background noise that gets stuck in your head. If you look up, you see that almost all the windows are dark. The ones that are lit flicker softly, like the bulbs can't decide if they want to stay on or fade out. More than once, you wonder if you just saw a shadow pass behind a curtain, but then it's gone, and you're left with your imagination. The entry door is heavy, with chipping paint peeling away to show patches of rusted metal underneath. There's a little mailbox on the wall that's been stuffed too full. Flyers, takeout menus, a yellowed postcard poking out the top. The faded numbers, barely legible, tell you this is definitely the right place. But the closer you look, the more you notice small, strange things. A spiderweb that never seems to get disturbed, fingerprints pressed into the dust by the handle, and a single, almost invisible crack snaking its way around the glass pane. Your hand trembles for a second as you reach for the knob, but you tell yourself you're just tired from the long drive. That's all. You walk inside, dragging your suitcase behind you. The air is heavy and smells faintly of old books and something you can't quite name, like damp concrete mixed with faded perfume. The hallway is narrow, and your footsteps seem to echo much louder than they should. You glance over your shoulder more than once, just to be sure you're really alone. Each door you pass is closed tight, painted with dark colors that look almost blue in the dim light. Some doors are scratched, others have bits of old tape stuck near the peepholes. There's a sad, beat-up chair next to the stairs, as if somebody tried to leave it outside but gave up halfway. As you make your way further down the hall, you notice the light overhead seems to blink at random, sending odd shadows dancing along the walls. Flicker off, flicker on. It's slow, almost lazy. Sometimes you're forced to walk through complete darkness for a few steps, feeling your way along the cracked paint of the walls, trying not to bump into anything. The silence is so thick you start to hear your own heartbeat, and when a distant thud echoes from another floor, you stop dead in your tracks. You stand still for a while, suitcase balanced on one heel, trying to figure out if the sound was even real. Then, just as suddenly, you hear a muffled laugh, or maybe a cough, coming from somewhere deep in the building. It's too faint to understand, but it's just enough to make your skin crawl. Now you really start to notice the details. Wallpaper peeling in long, curling strips, a water stain running like a river across the ceiling, and a pile of mail that looks like it hasn't been touched in weeks. You finally reach your apartment door and pause to catch your breath. There's another strange smell here, a mix of old cigarettes and something a bit floral. Not unpleasant, but definitely not new. Your hand shakes a little as you fit the key into the lock. Why are you so nervous? You can't put your finger on it. Maybe it's just the way the lights flicker and fade, or the way every little sound echoes across the hall, making everything feel bigger and emptier than it should. Inside, your new place is almost empty except for a battered sofa against one wall and a nearly spotless kitchen counter. The air is cold, and the only sound is the faint drip of a faucet somewhere in the back. As you walk from room to room, your shoes squeak on the lumpy linoleum. You flip light switches on and off, waiting for bulbs to warm up and stay bright. Each room feels a little colder than the last, and you keep glancing behind doors, half expecting to catch someone staring back. Your first impression is mostly a mix of curiosity and something harder to name. It feels less like moving in and more like stumbling into a place you're not really supposed to be. There's a chill in the air that doesn't completely go away, no matter how many times you check the thermostat. You're drawn to the windows, peering out into the thick mist, trying to spot anyone walking by. But the street is empty. Not a car, not a light, not even the distant bark of a dog. Just more silence, pressing in on all sides. You tell yourself it'll feel normal soon, that all these strange little details will fade with time. But as the hours drag on and the evening light gets swallowed by darkness, you hear it again. That faint, muffled sound from somewhere down the hallway. This time, maybe it's just pipes settling or wind rattling the gutters. Still, you can't shake the idea that you're not the only one awake, not the only one listening. Your heart starts to race, and your thoughts bounce from one wild idea to the next. By the time you unpack your last bag, the whole place feels different. Shadows gather in the corners, growing longer with every minute. The flickering light by the front door has finally burned out, leaving the entrance in half darkness. And in this strange new home, even the most ordinary things, a bent fork in the drawer, a picture hook left by the last tenant, a smudge on the wall by the light switch, suddenly feel loaded with meaning. Hidden stories, hints, warnings maybe. And as you get ready for your first uneasy night, you wonder what you'll hear when you finally try to sleep. Will it be silence or something stranger? Because this place, with its misty streets and aging bricks, doesn't feel quite right. There's something hiding just out of sight, and you've barely scratched the surface. The next thing you notice is how the silence almost buzzes in your ears, like the world's trying to keep a secret just out of reach. Every few minutes, the pipes groan behind the walls, or a random creak slides across the ceiling. Was that the floorboards above? Or did someone, or something, just shuffle past your door? You start to imagine voices carried in the wind, tiny scraps of conversation you can't quite catch. Once, you think you hear a TV playing somewhere, the tinny sound of laughter bubbling up, only to vanish the instant you focus in. You suddenly remember a story you heard from the landlord when you signed the lease. She'd said, "The place has got character, you know? Some people say it's just the wind, but, well, old buildings remember things." You laughed it off at the time, but now those words echo in your mind. What kinds of things could a building remember anyway? The smell of rain-soaked newspapers from years ago? An echo of hurried footsteps after midnight? The way the air seems thicker in some places, almost like it's hiding secrets? You set your keys in a chipped bowl on the counter, their small clatter ringing far too loud in the emptiness. The cold draft sneaks under the door and wraps around your ankles, making the tiny hairs on your arms stand up. You wrap yourself tighter in your jacket, feeling the walls practically leaning in, watching. Even the old wall clock seems slower here, each tick and tock stretching into the quiet. You wonder who lived here before you. Was the key always this stiff in the lock? Or is it just tonight? Did they see the same shadows? Did they hear those distant, echoing laughs deep in the night? Or were they, too, just trying to make it feel like home, one light switch at a time? Tomorrow, you promise yourself you'll look for answers, or maybe just for someone else awake in this odd, silent maze. But for now, you climb onto the battered sofa, pull a thin blanket around your shoulders, and try to lose yourself in the silence. The building feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for what comes next. But that wasn't even the strangest part. You stand there holding your last box, feeling sweat break out on your hands even though the apartment's cold. There's a click as your new roommate opens his door and steps out for the first time. You can feel your heartbeat pulsing in your ears. He's taller than you pictured from the texts, with dark hair slicked back. Almost too neat, like he fixed it seconds before seeing you. His sweater matches the trim on the hallway door, and he doesn't smile. He just holds out his hand, slow and careful, and you try not to flinch. "Glad you made it," he says. His voice is low, almost flat. You reach out and your handshake is short, dry, almost awkward. But his grip lingers just a fraction too long and his eyes hold yours. You want to look away, but somehow you can't. It's just a handshake, you tell yourself, nothing weird. But it sticks in your mind and you feel it in your shoulders all evening. As you haul your things down the narrow corridor, he steps aside. You glance into his room, only for a second, but it's enough. His half is spotless. Everything lined up, books sorted by color, desk clear except for a single lamp and a closed notebook at the perfect angle. The bed sheets are stiff and wrinkle-free. Even the corner of his rug is squared with the wall. You look at your own side where your backpack's spilled shirts onto the floor and your suitcase is still half unzipped. You feel a little sloppy, unprepared. Maybe he just likes things tidy, you think. But then, while you're stacking a pile of shirts in your closet, he knocks softly and says, "Hey, just a heads up. I have this rule. At night, can you make sure you keep your door locked? Like, all the way. It's for everyone's safety." Your hands freeze. "Oh, sure, I guess," you answer, throwing out a nervous little laugh that goes unanswered. "Is there, a story behind that?" He shrugs. "This is an old building. You know how it is. Sometimes doors pop open. It just makes me feel better." For a second, you almost believe him. But the longer you stare at his face searching for a smile or a playful wink, the more uneasy you feel. There isn't one. And when he backs out of the doorway, you notice his hand on the doorknob lingers, twisting from side to side as if testing the lock over and over, even though he knows it works. You shake off the feeling and try to focus on unpacking, music on, headphones in, but your eyes keep darting to the door. When you head to the kitchen, you notice he has a little plastic basket for his own silverware, stacked by size, and he keeps his coffee mugs upside down on a perfectly folded towel. Your mugs, by contrast, are crammed in wherever they fit. The first dinner is silent, sitting at the little table under the flickering light. You ask him about local places, but his answers are short. He barely eats, pushing food around in tight circles on his plate. There's an edge to the silence that makes you want to fill it with pointless chatter. But every time you try, he just nods or says, "Yep," and that's it. That night comes quickly. As you get ready for bed, his footsteps creak down the hallway behind you, then pause right outside your door. He knocks once, soft, so barely more than a tap. "Don't forget the lock," he says. Now you're lying in bed in a room that still feels borrowed, watching the slow dance of shadow and light from cars outside. Every time a headlight sweeps by, it splits your room in two and makes the old paint glow. You keep reaching over to check the lock, just in case. Around midnight, you hear it. The slow, gentle pacing back and forth in the next room. Floorboards groan in regular little bursts, like a slow drum beat. Sometimes he pauses at the wall closest to where you're sleeping, and then, right when your eyes start to close, the pacing starts again. You want to tell yourself it's normal, that he's just restless, or maybe anxious like you. But after the third night of this routine, it's anything but. Each morning, he greets you with the same short, almost forced, morning as he pulls a perfect mug of coffee. The kitchen's spotless, but the trash under the sink is always overflowing. You offer to take it out, but he insists, "I'll handle it," shutting the lid with a sharp snap. The more you try to get used to him, the more tense you feel. He moves around silently during the day, but at night, that pacing returns, unbroken, steady. Sometimes, as you doze off, you swear you hear him whispering through the thin walls. Not quite words, just faint, rhythmic muttering that makes no sense. Your gut tightens, and suddenly you're imagining what he could possibly be saying. Praying, chanting, making lists, plotting. You start to watch him for clues, odd habits, patterns he repeats. You notice he always leaves his bedroom light on until sunrise. When you ask if it keeps him awake, he just shrugs. I forget to turn it off. You want to believe him, but every part of you knows he's lying. Even small things feel loaded with meaning now. He always closes his laptop the second you walk in. He never checks his phone in front of you. He locks the bathroom door and takes forever inside, even if it's just brushing his teeth. Some nights, you stare at the ceiling for what feels like hours, sleep fighting its way through your worry. Then, one evening, right after sunset, you notice something new. The apartment is so quiet you can almost hear your own thoughts bouncing off the walls. You suddenly hear your roommate's voice from the kitchen, talking low, almost in a whisper, as if someone else is there. But when you peek around the corner, there's no one else in sight, and his lips are still. Maybe you imagined it, or maybe there's someone on the phone, but you notice he doesn't have his phone in hand. Just a dull steak knife, tracing lines into a wooden cutting board. When he senses you, he stops, glances up, and gives that same flat stare, his eyes unreadable. That night, as you're drifting off, you see a strange glow under his door. Not the warm yellow of a lamp, but a harsh, cold blue, the kind you see from a computer screen. You hear keys ticking rapidly, a sharp, relentless rhythm, then absolute silence. The blue glow vanishes, replaced by darkness. Your heartbeat quickens and you find yourself counting to 10, holding your breath without even knowing why. Did he notice you noticed? Lying there, you try to remember if you locked your door, and now you're up again, double-checking, nearly jumping at the squeak of the old doorknob. Days pass. You start paying attention to the details you would have ignored before. The way he organizes his dishes with the labels always turned outward. How he dries his hands 5 times in a row. Or the exact number of steps from kitchen to hallway. When you try to bring up stories about old roommates, hoping he'll share something, anything, he remains silent. Just a slow blink and a tight smile that never quite reaches his eyes. You feel the gap between you widen, with every secret movement, every strange routine building a wall. Sometimes you even question yourself. Are you the difficult one? Is all this just nerves from moving in with someone new? But then you remember how your breath caught in that first handshake, how even a simple request like locking your door felt like a warning. All those small things, put together, leave you never quite able to relax. You worry what he'll do if you break one of his unspoken rules, or if you ever forget the lock. With all this tension hanging in the air, you can't help but think, what would finally push things over the edge? You tell yourself you'll just keep your head down, follow his rules, and hope nothing happens. But that's before you find what he's been hiding, the one thing that proves your instincts were right all along. So, what did I find? Well, you'll want to hear about the night everything changed. But even before that terrifying second week, the details keep gnawing at you. Every little thing starts to matter. The floorboards are never just quiet. Whenever you step out into the shadowy hallway to grab some water, you notice the way your footsteps echo, different somehow than during the day. Sometimes you swear you hear a light tap-tap behind your door, almost like someone's rapping their knuckles, but always just as you reach out for the handle, it stops. One night, after you hear that same strange scratch against the wall, you finally call your best friend. You try to downplay it, saying, I think I'm just sleep-deprived or something, but my apartment is making the weirdest noises at night. Your friend laughs and teases, Oh, you've got a ghost! Better not watch any horror movies before bed. You laugh along, but your voice cracks. The truth is, you're not just rattled, you're starting to dread sunset. The odd thing is, these moments feel both real and dreamlike. There's the way the shadows in the living room twist when headlights sweep through the blinds, making shapes that never look the same twice. The air feels heavier at night, like it's pressing in. Sometimes you wake from a half-sleep, convinced you just heard someone quietly humming on the other side of your bedroom wall. The next time the whispering returns, you try to record it again, holding your phone in trembling hands. But the moment you hit record, everything falls silent. It's maddening. You mutter under your breath, "Come on, say something." Suddenly, as if in answer, there's a single tap from the other room. Then, clear as day, a quiet, breathy voice says, "Don't." That single word rings in your ears long after it fades. You replay the recording for an hour, again and again. It's faint, but it's there. You can hear the fear creeping into your voice as you whisper, "Am I losing it?" You try to reason it out logically. You make up stories for every sound. A dog outside, an old heating pipe, a neighbor having a midnight phone call. Still, your mind circles back to the moments where you can't explain what happened. One morning, across the hall, you find your neighbor, Mrs. Lewis, standing frozen at her door, key in hand. You give a nervous smile. She whispers, almost too quietly, "Strange dreams lately, huh?" You don't know what to say, so you just nod. There's something in her eyes, a worry that matches your own. Then there's your roommate, more distant every day. You decide to confront him. Over dinner, you ask, "Hey, do you seriously not hear anything at night? The thumps, the voices?" He doesn't meet your gaze, just pokes at his food and says, "Nope, you probably just need to sleep more. We both do." But you catch him later in the hallway, headphones blasting music that's way too loud for midnight. He flinches when you mention the noises. That's when it hits you. He's trying to drown them out. He does hear them. He's just as scared as you. The fear settles in as a constant companion. You jump at the slam of cupboard doors and leave all the lights in the apartment blazing, but it never seems bright enough. Sometimes you find yourself sitting alone at the kitchen table, staring at your mug as if any second it'll start moving on its own. Your senses stay on high alert. Every scent of old wood, every tick of the oven thermostat, every brush of cold air from the open window sends your heart racing. Nothing feels safe. Even the quiet is suspicious, too thick, too total. You start writing down every odd thing, making lists. 109, footsteps in the hall. 1:30, humming in the pipes. 2 o'clock, my name whispered. Clear as anything. You reread these lists in the morning, hoping they'll seem silly in the daylight, but all they do is pile up. The evidence is growing, turning your curiosity into something colder, real fear. There's a memory from that first week. You had your window open, trying to air out the apartment late at night. Somewhere in the wind you heard laughing, not the good kind, but broken, echoey, like someone laughing underwater. It felt wrong, so wrong you slammed the window shut, heart pounding. You remember thinking, this isn't just old pipes or creaky floors. Something else is here. By now, your dreams have turned as strange as your waking hours. You snap awake with your pulse racing, convinced you'd heard your name right before opening your eyes. Even daylight doesn't really help. With every sound, every voice, it's getting harder to tell what's real and what's only in your head. But just as you're about to give up and ask for help, you notice something new. A scrap of paper wedged under your door, words scrawled in shaky handwriting. You unfold it with trembling hands, mind racing. What does it say? Why now? Who's watching? And that note is how everything starts to unravel. So, what was on that note, and who could have left it? The next part of this story might just reveal the secret behind the sounds. You tell yourself you're overreacting, but as the nights drag on, the sounds don't stop. They just get weirder. At first, it's the whispers. They grow louder every night, sometimes sharp, sometimes gravelly. Sometimes it seems like more than one person talking through the wall, voices low and urgent. Sometimes it's laughter, high and manic, bouncing off the narrow hallways. Other times it's just your name, again and again, hissed or sung or growled in voices you hardly recognize. There are nights you wake up drenched in cold sweat, the covers tangled around you as if you've been wrestling with something in your sleep. By now, you've set up your phone by the wall every night, desperate to catch some evidence, to have proof you aren't losing your mind. The recordings fill up fast, hours of muffled voices, fragments of conversations, sudden tapping noises. You play them for your roommate. He refuses to listen. I don't want to know. Don't involve me. And just like that, you're alone. The fear isn't just in your head now. You feel it all over, tight in your chest, prickling across your scalp. Your hands shake so much some nights you drop your phone, and once you even break a glass by accident, just from gripping it too tight when a sudden crash from the living room echoes out of nowhere. Even the houseplants seem to lean away from the hallway at night, leaves curling and drooping as the darkness settles in. Insomnia becomes your new normal. Each time you try to sleep, you're jolted awake by a loud crash from the kitchen, or something falling in the hallway, or a whisper so clear you're sure it's spoken from inches behind your head. You start seeing things move. A cup tipping onto its side, a lamp flickering out, your notebook sliding a full inch across the desk without you touching it. Each time you try to convince yourself it's just the apartment creaking or maybe you're overtired, something happens that blows your rationalizations apart. One night you're up pacing the kitchen, too afraid to go back to your bedroom, and you see it, a shadow flickering just behind you in the glow of the refrigerator light. You spin around. No one's there. You freeze, heart pounding, breathing in quick, sharp gasps. Now the shadows seem to gather in corners, moving just out of sight every time you focus your eyes. You stand there, waiting to see if you imagined it, but this time you're sure. The hairs on your arms are standing straight up, and you can feel the temperature drop a few degrees, like you just stepped into a walk-in freezer. Your daily routine unravels. You're late for work, hair wild, eyes bloodshot. You snap at coworkers, barely touch your food. All you can think about are the voices, the growing sense that whatever's happening in this apartment is getting worse. By lunchtime, you find yourself obsessively checking your phone, re-listening to old recordings, looking for patterns in the static. Sleep is out of the question. You're almost scared to close your eyes, terrified that something will happen if you let your guard down for even a second. Things escalate. Now you hear your name mixed in with the conversations. Sometimes the voices keep repeating it over and over, as if they're calling for you specifically, urgent and pleading. Other times they whisper threats, things like, "Come closer," or, "We know you're there." Your blood runs cold. You start dreaming about the voices, seeing flashes of faces you don't recognize, dark and twisted and always hiding in the shadows. You try calling your parents, your closest friend, anyone who'll listen. You break down, voice shaking as you describe the things moving, the voices calling, the cold spots that leave your skin tingling. Some believe you, offering gentle reassurances and tips about burning sage or getting the place blessed. Others laugh, tell you you're just under stress. At this point, all you want is to feel safe. A feeling so far gone it almost seems impossible to get back. There was even one night you asked your friend Ethan to come over. He sat on the couch with you, both of you listening to the silence stretched too tight. Even he jumped when a door slammed itself shut in the empty hallway. Ethan left soon after that. He texted you, "Maybe call your landlord? Let me know you're okay." You buy nightlights and plug them into every outlet, creating islands of light in every room, but they only make the darkness seem deeper, thicker in the spaces between. The old building groans every time the wind picks up. Late at night, something presses against your bedroom door, soft but heavy, like a hand or paw, testing the lock. More than once you see the doorknob twitching back and forth. A neighbor down the hall stops you one afternoon and quietly asks, "Hey, have you heard weird stuff at night? Like, voices?" You nod, feeling relief for just a moment. But when you invite her in to talk, she backs away, mutters something about not wanting to get involved, and disappears behind her door. You set up a camera just inside your door, training the lens on the hallway for hours. When you finally review the footage, you nearly drop your phone. For a split second, the camera catches your door opening an inch, then suddenly slamming shut. Your roommate is nowhere in sight. You replay it over and over, searching for an explanation. The hallway is empty. There's nobody there. It doesn't make sense. At breakfast, you confront your roommate. He won't meet your eyes. You barely recognize yourself in his icy silence. You want answers, but he only shrugs, repeats his line about old doors and bad locks, and retreats back to his room. You stand there, hands shaking, staring at your untouched coffee until it grows cold. You stop doing laundry. You're too nervous to go into the basement alone, too afraid you'll hear those whispers coming from the old vents or behind the stacks of boxes. The rhythm of the days disappears. You forget what it felt like to be yourself, to trust your own senses, to walk the halls without glancing over your shoulder every time a light flickers. As days blend together, little things pile up. You find photos from your phone replaced by black static, your favorite sweatshirt vanishes, and your spare keys end up balanced inside the sink. You text your friends more and more, asking them about meaningless things, just for a thread to normal life. No one really has answers for you, and your texts mostly end in, try to get some sleep. But sleep is dangerous territory now. One evening, trying to clear your head, you walk out into the hallway, promising yourself not to look at the other apartment doors. But you can't help it. The doors seem to loom, dark and silent, daring you to approach. You pass the one just beside yours, the one everyone says has been empty for months, and realize it's ice cold. Pressing your ear to the door, you almost think you hear a voice whispering, impossibly faint. But you jerk away, heart hammering, suddenly terrified that someone's about to burst through or grab your hand from the other side. By now you're walking through the days half awake, eating only when hunger forces you, missing deadlines, barely functioning. Your friends start to worry. You promise you're fine, but you know you aren't. The line between awake and asleep blurs. You dream about the voices, about hands reaching through the wall, about your name echoing in the darkness. You wake up screaming, unsure where or when you are. In the shower, you swear you hear someone humming your favorite childhood lullaby, but there's no one home. You catch your reflection in the mirror and it almost looks like someone's standing just behind your shoulder, moving when you don't. So you ask yourself, is it all in your head, or is something or someone really trying to get to you? The feeling of being watched grows stronger every day, and deep down, you know you can't ignore it much longer. But that wasn't even the worst of it. You reach your breaking point. Too many nights without sleep, too many shadows that move in the corners of your vision. It's time to do something, anything, to get answers. You start by going door to door, knocking softly on the neighbors' doors in the hallway, hoping someone else has noticed the strange noises. Your first neighbor, an elderly woman in a faded pink bathrobe, squints at you. You try to explain, have you ever heard voices? Not from the TV, but strange, whispering voices at night? She blinks, fiddles with the rosary in her hands. Old buildings creak. Sometimes you hear what you want to hear. Then she shuts her door, with a little more force than you expect. Determined not to give up, you try your luck with the other neighbors. Down the hall, you spot Mr. Patel watering his plants in the window. You approach him, nerves prickling, and ask, do you ever notice anything weird at night? Like sounds? He looks over his shoulder, eyebrows knit together. Once or twice I've heard something, like a radio left on maybe. But when I check, there's nothing playing. My wife says she hears laughter sometimes, but she thinks it's the teenagers above us. As he speaks, his fingers keep fidgeting with a leaf until it snaps. You catch a glimpse of the anxiety mirrored in your own trembling hands. You head 2 doors down to a young couple, moving boxes stacked behind them. They listen carefully, exchanging glances. The man says, we hear stuff sometimes. Knocks, you know? Maybe rats. Maybe the wind. The woman, quieter, leans in. It's not just you. Sometimes I wake up and swear someone's talking in my room, but my husband thinks it's a dream. She forces a half smile. Let us know if you ever figure it out. As you wander the hallway, you pass the maintenance guy, Luis, lugging a toolbox. You seize your chance and ask, Luis, you ever get complaints about weird noises, like voices? He shrugs. Always noises in old buildings, but voices? Maybe kids, maybe old pipes. Sometimes late at night, sounds get all mixed up. My grandma used to say buildings remember what happened in their walls. You stare at him, searching his face for a smirk, but he just offers a tired shrug and disappears down the stairs. You start to suspect you're not the only one haunted by these noises, but no one is willing to say it out loud. You feel both comforted and even more uneasy. Is this whole building hiding a secret? Fueled by adrenaline, you turn your own apartment inside out. You press your ear to every vent and tap along every wall, searching for cracks, speakers, anything that could explain the voices or cold spots. You shine your flashlight on the old radiator, half expecting to find hidden microphones. Nothing. You kneel down, prying up a loose floorboard, only to discover a tumble of dust and old receipts from years ago. Your fingers come away cold and trembling. You find a tiny metal plate behind the fridge, a rusted vent cover, and set to work unscrewing it. It opens to a black, narrow space that runs between the apartments. You drop a marble inside and listen as it rolls, bouncing off the metal for a long while before falling silent. Did it hit another room? Was there someone on the other side now listening to you? You begin a systematic sweep of every room with your old cassette recorder, holding it up to the vents and under the doorframe, straining to capture the ghostly snippets of conversation. Playback is its own kind of torture. The static, the thuds, and sometimes just beneath the fuzz, a murmur that almost forms a word. You rewind, play again. The hair on your arms stands up because this time you hear your name. You spend hours crawling through online forums searching for stories like yours. One thread says, "Old buildings have sound tunnels in the walls. Sounds travel in ways you'd never think possible." Someone else posts a grainy photo of a vent, claiming, "My aunt said a tenant hid an old tape recorder here, playing loops of voices all night to scare us." Another reply reads, "Some buildings want to tell you their secrets. Don't listen too closely." That uneasy chill settles deeper in your gut. Next, you start testing appliances. You unplug everything in the room, one by one, even the tiny nightlight, and sit in the dark, waiting. Still, you hear the faint hum, like a low chant, just under the silence. You try your best to trace it to a source, but it seems to drift through every wall, rising and falling with no pattern. At one point, you sit with your laptop perched on your knees, using a sound app to try mapping the noises. But every time you think you found a pattern, it dissolves into static. For proof, you film hours of video, close-ups of door frames, pipes, and your pale, anxious face as you narrate. Sometimes in the footage you catch a shadow slip by, or a faint breath that doesn't line up with your own. You jot notes in shaky handwriting. 2:14 a.m. Tap, tap, tap. 2:17. Voice, not English. 2:24. My name whispered. 3 times. You decide to go straight to your roommate. You lay out every strange finding and ask, "Have you ever heard the whispers? Do you know what's going on?" He's cutting apples in the kitchen, methodical, precise. He pauses, knife hovering. "No idea," he says, voice flat. "Maybe you're overtired. Ghost stories." But he doesn't meet your gaze. When he finishes, he slips the knife back into its slot with a click and leaves the kitchen without another word. The days blur together. You can barely keep track of what's real and what's just in your mind. Each time you think you've found the answer, it slips away. You email the building manager asking if the walls have ever been opened up or if anyone else has ever complained about strange noises. He calls you after a day, sighing loudly. "Old pipes, maybe a raccoon in the ductwork, no big deal." Still searching, you press your phone against the floor and record a low, thrumming vibration. Unsure what it means, you play it for a friend over the phone. She laughs nervously, saying, "Girl, you need some sleep. It probably is just pipes or old wiring. Or who knows, maybe your building's haunted." You don't know what to say, but her laughter sticks with you, like the sound of someone whistling past a graveyard to keep their courage up. People keep writing you off. Everyone, it seems, except the shadows sneaking beneath your door at night and the voices that get clearer and clearer. Still, you keep searching, desperate for a solution. You poke into every crawl space, every cupboard, and deep in the hall closet behind the coats, you find another vent, this one warm and buzzing softly. The closer you get, the more your ears ring, until you're forced to pull away, shaken. Sometimes, in the dead of night, you find yourself trembling on the edge of a panic attack, whispering, "Please, just let me sleep," to the empty room. When you force yourself to step out onto the balcony, the city noises sound normal at first, but then you hear a snatch of conversation, the exact phrase you heard through your walls last night. Your breath catches. Was it ever just the apartment, or is something else following you now? No matter how many explanations you beg from friends, the online world, your own roommate, none of it makes sense. When you sit alone, staring at the blank wall, frustration boils into real fear. If it's not the wind or the pipes or a prank, then what is it? You're left holding your phone, thumb poised to dial 911, but you can't quite bring yourself to call. What would you even say? You take a deep breath and turn back to your notebook. You jot down questions instead of answers. Who's talking? From where? What do they want? The only thing that's clear is that every normal, rational answer has already been ruled out. You're out of options and out of time. But just when you think you've exhausted every explanation, you stumble on one last clue that shakes everything you thought you knew. What is it? And will it finally give you the answer? Or just lead you deeper into the mystery? Let's find out in the next section. Night falls again, thicker and heavier than ever before. There's a weight in the air, as if the whole apartment is holding its breath, waiting for something to shatter the silence. You lie awake, shivering, heart thudding in your chest, clutching the blanket up to your chin. Every so often you catch yourself staring at the patch of ceiling where the shadows always seem just a little too thick. For hours you listen to every creak in the walls, every distant rumble of the city outside. In the hallway, the radiator groans, but somehow you feel a coldness settling deeper than anything a broken heater can explain. Tonight, you decide, you're going to face whatever's hiding behind those whispers. You can't live like this anymore. Always waiting, always afraid, always jumping at your own reflection. No more running, and definitely no more pretending. Your resolve turns to action. You swing your legs over the edge of the bed and force yourself to stand. The wood floor is icy, sending a shock right up your spine. You grab your phone, your only lifeline to the world above, and, on a hunch, your old baseball bat. Even in the dim light, it looks small in your grip. As you creep across your room, your foot nudges an old photo. You and your roommate at move-in, grinning, arms thrown over each other's shoulders. For just a second, you feel a pang of longing for when things were normal, before the whispers started. The house is so quiet, all you hear is your own ragged breath and the blood rushing in your ears. Your roommate's bedroom door is closed, but you can see strange shadows flicker under the crack. The bulb inside must be buzzing. It always does when the wiring acts up. But tonight there's an extra edge, almost like it's humming along with the strange voices that have haunted your dreams. You tiptoe down the hallway in your socks, every step sending shivers up your legs. Shadows from the trees outside ripple along the walls, twisting into shapes that vanish the moment you look straight at them. At the end of the hallway, you freeze. The cellar door, always locked, always off limits, is cracked open, just enough to spill a slice of total darkness onto the floor. Old memories rush back. That time the landlord warned you not to go down there. The argument with your roommate over why it was best left alone. The sudden drop in temperature whenever you walked past it. Every instinct inside you is screaming to stop, to turn around and hide under the covers. But you push forward, charging your fear into a stubborn kind of courage. You reach out. Your hand is shaking so badly you almost drop the bat. The door handle is sticky, cold, and covered in flaking red paint that comes off on your palm. With a hard swallow, you give it a shove and step through. The air is different the moment you cross the threshold. It's heavy, almost syrupy, and it stinks of damp earth, mildew, and something metallic. You flick your flashlight on, the beam sputtering as it darts around the cramped space. The light catches the stone walls, which glisten with condensation. Every surface is coated in a thin layer of dust or grime. The steps down groan and complain under your weight, each footfall sounding way too loud. As you move, you notice photographs pinned to the walls. Maybe old tenants or people you never met, their faces half ripped or melted away by time and water. A wadded-up newspaper from who knows when crumples beneath your shoe, and the sound echoes off the walls. You pause, straining to catch the smallest sound. Is that weeping? Or someone muttering, their words swirling just out of reach? For a split second, you're sure it's your own name, whispered clear as day. You spin around, flashlight shaking as the beam jumps from shadow to shadow, never settling on anything solid. Candles, mostly just stubs, their wax pooled down the sides of rusted cans, sit on ancient, rotting crates. Scraps of paper curl at your feet, and when your light hits a pile of shattered glass, it throws rainbow flakes onto the ceiling. From the deepest corner of the room, a cold wind suddenly whips past you, tossing your hair into your eyes. Dust explodes into the air, and the flashlight nearly tumbles from your sweaty palm. All at once, whispers erupt into howls, screaming, pleading, your name spinning through every voice. The sound is overwhelming, a wall of noise and pain. Your arms break out in goosebumps. Your teeth chatter uncontrollably. But you force yourself to stand tall, gripping the bat so tightly your hands ache. With a voice you barely recognize, you call out, trembling, "Who's there? Show yourself." Your words echo back at you, bouncing through the labyrinth of stone and shadow. Then, something moves. A patch of darkness slides away from the hallway, coiling up into a figure. At first, it's just a shape, more suggestion than human. But as your eyes adjust, you see him, your roommate. At least, it's what's left of him. He's thinner than you remember, almost like something has been feeding on him. His eyes burn fever bright, unfocused, as he shuffles forward. In his shaky hand, a little recorder glints in the flashlight's beam, wires trailing from the sleeves of his hoodie. You stagger back, every muscle screaming, "Run!" But you're rooted to the spot. The tension snaps as he presses something on the recorder. Instantly, the room fills with a cascade of voices, layered, tangled, all at once pleading, angry, mournful, and all of them calling your name. The room vibrates with sound, so loud your bones ache. Even the strings of old birthday banners left from tenants past tremble as if alive. He looks at you, hollow and desperate. "I had to," he says, voice wobbling. "They wouldn't stop unless I played them back. I thought, maybe, if I listened long enough, they'd go away." Your fear burns away, replaced by a sharp, bitter anger. "What are you doing?" you yell, nearly drowned out by the noise. "Why us? Why this place?" Each word comes out sharper, steadier than you expect. He stumbles back, clutching the recorder like it's the only thing keeping him afloat. "They want someone to listen," he whispers, eyes darting. "If I don't, they come for me, or for you, or for anyone. I'm sorry, I just wanted it to stop." You shake your head, frustration boiling over. "You could have told me. You could have warned everybody. We could have found a way together." He flinches, his whole body curling in. "I didn't think anybody would believe me," he mumbles. "And I didn't want to be alone again. I didn't want you to leave too." His words are almost lost beneath the steadily growing volume of the voices swirling around you. The basement lights flicker, shadows writhing along the ceiling. The voices grow louder, tumbling into each other. Grief, fury, longing all mixed together. The cold is so deep now, it bites at your skin, sharp as ice. Everything is shaking, the shelves, the crates, even the ground beneath your boots. You and your roommate press close, standing back to back as the haunted storm closes in. Over the din, he screams, "If we destroy it, maybe they'll finally go." You hesitate just a heartbeat, the gravity of the moment pressing on your chest. Time itself seems to slow. Every memory you've shared in this apartment, the laughter, the late-night talks, the sense of safety, all collapse into this one decision. Then, without warning, you surge forward, grabbing the recorder from his clammy hands. For a heartbeat, you see regret, the shimmer of tears on his cheeks, before you raise your arms and bring the recorder down, smashing it against the cement wall. Time stops. For an instant, the world is nothing but bright, blinding light, a flash so intense it wipes all shadows away. Then there's a crack like thunder, raw and deep. The lights in the basement pop one by one, leaving you in utter, suffocating blackness. Your heart slams against your ribs. The only things you're sure are real are the hammering of your own pulse and your roommate's gasping breath somewhere beside you. You can't see, and you can barely move, frozen in the aftershock. But above you, the old house groans, even louder than before. Maybe it's a floorboard. Maybe it's something much, much older, shifting in the darkness. Something that's been waiting. You fumble for your roommate, finding his clammy hand in the dark. No words need to be spoken. Together you stumble up the stairs, tripping and slipping, blind but desperate to escape. As you burst through the cellar door, you hear it. One last, long, echoing whisper, like a sigh of relief, or a warning. The door slams behind you, vibrating the whole hallway. The silence that follows is almost unbearable, total and terrifying. You stand there, gasping, shivering from head to toe, listening to the emptiness. It's so quiet you wonder if your ears have stopped working. But somewhere inside that hush, a new question scratches at your brain. What did you just unleash? And more importantly, is it really over? Or has something else just begun? So what happened after the doors slammed behind you? That's where things get even stranger. After that night, everything feels different, like the whole world has shifted just a couple inches to the left. Your first waking thought every morning is that thick, heavy silence in the apartment and the way your heart hammers every time you turn a corner. The next day dawns gray and washed out. You and your roommate are both shaky, stumbling through the kitchen, not making eye contact. There's a kind of brittle calm, almost peaceful, but you can tell it's just on the surface. The recorder is gone, shattered to bits on the cellar floor, but you both still jump at tiny sounds. Footsteps in the hallway that could just be a neighbor. The echo of a voice on the TV that sounds just a little too much like the ones you heard through the wall. The questions don't go away just because the noise has stopped. In some ways, the not knowing is worse. You clean the apartment together in total silence. It's the first real teamwork you've ever had. You even laugh, short and nervous, when you find a melted candle wedged under the stove, a strange reminder of that wild night. Some things stick around, even after you think you've moved past them. In the days that follow, you both talk more. You share stories of sleepless nights, of seeing shadows in places they shouldn't be, of voices that sound different in dreams and memories. Your roommate tells you how he moved here desperate for quiet, only to find the building's silence more terrifying than any noise. Funny, isn't it? He says one late night, sipping tea. I thought peace and quiet was all I needed, but now it just feels empty. You realize, in a strange way, the mystery didn't just haunt you. It brought you both out of your shells. It forced you to be honest, to trust someone, to fight together when things went sideways. That kind of fear isn't easy to let go, but it's also the thing that made you stronger. You walk the old hallways with new eyes, seeing the little details you missed in your first days. The way the light pools under certain doors, the quiet concentration on neighbors' faces as they pass you, the muffled conversations in the stairwells late at night, the sense that every closed door has its own story. Everybody is fighting some kind of whisper. Everybody's afraid of something, and sometimes all it takes is a nudge, a weird sound at midnight, a shadow flickering where it shouldn't be, to knock you off balance. You wonder if anyone else ever worked up the nerve to search their own crawl spaces, or if they just got used to explaining away the strange and scary things. Maybe there are more unsolved stories in these empty apartments, waiting for the next person to listen. When you get brave, you return to the cellar. You stand at the doorway, breathing in the cold and the dust, gently pressing your ear to the wall in silence. This time, there's nothing. No voices, no shouts, no shadows that move when you blink. Just you, cold concrete, and the faint drip of water somewhere deep beneath the building. You're not sure if the danger is truly gone, but you know you're not as scared as you once were. Even that faint, musty smell, the way the light flickers overhead, feels less threatening than it did before. It's almost peaceful. What's the biggest lesson you take away? Sometimes the things we can't explain are the things that shape us the most. Mystery is scary when you're alone, but when you share it, investigate it, refuse to let fear control you, you learn how strong you can be. You learn just as much about yourself as you do about whatever's hiding in the shadows. Curiosity isn't just about finding answers. Sometimes it's about learning to live with questions and discovering you're not alone with them. We made it through, you say, half joking one night over dinner, and your roommate just smiles. A real one, the first you've seen in a long time. So what about you? Have you ever faced something you couldn't explain? A sound, a thought, a suspicion that refused to leave you alone? Did you ever find the answer? Or did it linger like a whisper, coming back when you least expect it? Drop your story or your wildest guess down in the comments. There are always more mysteries to solve, and yours might be the clue someone else has been missing. Imagine someone scrolling past, recognizing your story, and finally connecting the dots on something that kept them up at night, too. That's how communities and answers are built, piece by piece. Now, as for the lingering questions, do we really know what was causing those voices in the first place? Was it all just a trick of broken speakers and lonely fears, or are there more secrets wedged between the walls of that old building? You might not ever know for sure. That's part of what makes stories like this stick in your mind long after they're over. Some mysteries just refuse to let go, no matter how much you want to turn the page. And hey, if you think this story was wild, just wait until next week's episode. There's another mystery right around the corner in this strange apartment complex, and the next one just might turn everything you thought you knew upside down. Don't miss it. So what else don't we know? Sometimes the scariest part isn't what happened. It's what could still be waiting in the shadows, just out of sight. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next mystery.